Obviously got the 2 new kids out there. What are your initial impressions of them after one practice?
They looked a little nervous early, to be expected. But yeah, you can, it's one practice for an hour or so, but you can see the skill set on Kent there. He's got some pretty good hands. He's got good pace. So Nick, same thing. He's not a big guy, but you can tell he's assertive. But again, we're going off one hour practice. So yeah, I thought they did just fine today.
Do you watch them more than a normal player at this point, just to kind of see how they're settling in, see how they handle these types of things, or do you give them some space? Do you talk to them? I guess as a coach, what's kind of your approach to making sure that they're ready to handle all this and go into the lineup if that's the case?
Well, I can't be sure of any of that, but I will communicate with them. We've talked and try to get to know them as quick as I can. Kind of hear them speak first. I think that's important. What they bring to the game, what they bring to the table, what their foundation is, and then let them know what our expectations are as being a Blue Jacket, what that looks like, what that feels like, practice habits, all those things. So we're day one. There's a long ways to go, but we'll do the best we can to try and help them.
You now have 10 defensemen on the roster. You've probably got a lot to work through there, but do you have a sense of how you're going to try to handle that and maybe try to get Nick in, or just handling 10 defensemen basically at this point?
Yeah, I got a good sense what we're going to do.
Save that for later.
I'll let you know who's in the game on Wednesday.
Sounds good. You kind of mentioned this after the game the other night, but talking about veterans and your big players being, the guys that kind of have to carry the load, especially with so many guys out. And I think that top line really had a good game. I mean, were you really happy and pleased with the way you really cut down the roster by the end of that game? The way that those top guys really handled things on Saturday?
Yeah, I thought first effort. We've talked about a lot with the group. I'm not here to coach effort. I mean, that's required. That should be just a staple in who we are and part of our foundation. So that was the frustrating part of the 2 games against Philly. And I get it. I know it's hard. It's hard to dig deep and go, but we can't let up. And you saw in that Philly game, we just tried to play and you lose 4-1. We can't play that way. So we're going to push all the way through, and the leaders have to be the guys that are going to take charge of this. And that doesn't leave the rest of the guys off the hook. That just means, that's why they are the leaders. And so as far from an effort standpoint, I thought it was pretty good. I thought we were engaged in that game. There's plenty to clean up as far as mistakes and some details, and I think these 2 days of practice are good for that. We haven't had a lot of practice time in the last probably 3 weeks, really. So to get a couple of practices, I'm sure they don't love it, but as coaches, it's nice to be able to touch on some things, and tomorrow we're going to hit some more detail stuff and get ready for Wednesday.
We'll go to Zoom. Go ahead, Porty.
Thanks, Glenn. Hey, Brad, you've got 2 significant centers out of your lineup right now. Don't know about Corrali for Wednesday, but Jenner and Corrali, at least for today. How tempting is it to put Johnson in there in the middle, or how much do you want to protect him early on by starting him on the wing?
Well, he's played 2 years at the wing, and I'm not saying he can't play center, but I'm going to start him on the wing. I think that's the wise thing to do and give him a chance to get his feet wet here in a position he's familiar with. Again, this is why we talk. He's played a ton of center going before he went to Michigan, so I know that. But for 2 full years, he's played on the wing, and I think to start a kid out and ask him to take a center position in the NHL would be pretty tough. Now, I'm not sitting here saying we won't do it in the next few games, but we're one practice in, so I'm not going to make a lot of decisions yet. I'm going to watch him real close in practices and games and see how he's grasping things, and we'll go from there.
And on Blankenburg, people, do you even care about a defenseman's height and weight anymore? It used to be such a big part of the evaluation, but if you look around the league now, you see so many guys that don't conform to the previous standards of what was expected of a defenseman. Is it not that big a deal to you anymore, or do you still weigh what this kid can be able to do based upon his height and weight?
Well, I'm certainly not going to pigeonhole him because he's a smaller statured defenseman. It was interesting listening to him talk his story, his journey, kind of to how he got to where he got to today. And I'd heard it, but I like to hear it from him first. And I encourage you guys to talk to him because it's a really neat story. He's had to work for everything he has. And he didn't get here today to realize he's small. I think he knows he's small. I don't think that's any news to him. I think that's probably what's made him the player he is. And to walk into a program like Michigan, and wear a letter by your second year, be a captain by your third year, lead a team there's a lot of high-end prospects and draft picks on that team. That says a lot about, I think, his character and who he is, how he goes about his business. So I'm real intrigued to watch him play. When he's going to get in, and Kent, I'll make that decision here midweek, but I'm going to be watching him close because, I think competitiveness was one of the first things that came out of his mouth, and I love to hear that.
Yeah, thank you.
We'll close up with Mark Schlag. Go ahead, Mark.
Thanks, Glenn. Brad, new week, so is there any new update you can share on Boone Jenner and then Igor Chinnikov at all?
Still day-to-day, week-to-week with both those guys.
Okay, and then my last question then is just Gus Nyquist. With Corrali out, he's only one of the two that's been able to play in every game this season, an obvious testament to him. And then he was put up on the Roslovic and Lyon line. That line, obviously, you mentioned was outstanding on Saturday night. Just overall, Nyquist year, how the impact he's been able to have on your team, just how important has he been, especially stabilizing that line with Roslovic and Lyon?
Well, if you look at Gus's history, he's played a ton of hockey. Last year is not the norm for him. He's been a very healthy player his whole career, so it was kind of a fish out of water for him being injured last year. We've talked. He had I thought, a little bit of a slow start, but I mean it was to be expected. There's the timing element, and you miss a year of hockey. You're playing catch up. I don't care who you are, and it's really tough to do that. So I thought he found his game after about 6-7 weeks, and he's played really consistent for me for a long time. And one thing about him is his effort's usually there. He's a competitor. He makes his teammates better the way he distributes the puck. So, and I've used him with Patty and those guys before, and I've liked what I've seen, and sometimes we'll mix and match. But I thought those two do have a little bit of chemistry. I thought the line was very important, obviously, for us in that game, and we'll continue to see how it looks like down the stretch here.